You are listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Megan and Alex of Zesty Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you have come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, we use the 4 phases of the feminine cycle in combination with functional lab work to transform the lives of the women we work with. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own doctor before making changes. Ready to take control of your health? Let's get started.
Hello there, this is Alex. Thank you so much for joining me again. We are back with our pod classes. We're getting to the end of our season 1, and we're going to talk about progesterone today. Make sure you go back and listen to the last couple, if not all of them, because these pod classes were created to build on top of one another. But if you are just coming in because you're like, oh, I just got diagnosed with a progesterone deficiency, at least make sure to go back and listen to some of the testing information, because that will determine, how we talk about it and your ultimate understanding. But please go back to the beginning. Make sure you listen to these all the way through, because really you will have a much better understanding of any diagnosis that you may have gotten. And, if you are new to us, or you're going to know that we are all about taking action. So we have you start taking action with things right from the very beginning. But there's also a certain amount of introduction that you need in order to get to understanding these more complicated diagnoses that you may get from lab work and testing and all of that stuff. So that's the setup here. I'm going to follow the exact same setup that we did in the previous podcast. I'm going to talk about progesterone excess and things that we can do to impact that, and then progesterone deficiency, which is by far the more common thing that we see, and things that we can do to impact that positively. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So let's get right in it. So progesterone excess is relatively rare, and there are a handful of kind of more specific things that can set it off. But progesterone, we always want to look at the ratio of estrogen to progesterone. But assuming that you have looked at that and you're looking at progesterone excess, then there are a couple things. One is kind of easier to knock off the list, which is, are you pregnant? And that sometimes people are quite surprised. So that's always a good thing to talk about. Then for progesterone excess, we always want to know what is feeding the input to create so much progesterone and why the body is doing that. And many times what kicks that off are sources of inflammation that are out of control and that are sending the body into overdrive. And so you want to address any inflammation that you may have. So again, when it comes to even taking action on something like inflammation, you always want to think in 2 categories. What are the sources of inflammation coming into the body? And then what are the sources of inflammation that are, maybe not able to leave the body at the rate that they should? So, it's okay to have a stress response when you're about to get hit by another car. It's not okay for you to then feel like you have pins and needles all over you and you're like, your heart rate's really high and you feel stressed out for the rest of the day. Like, your body should be able to mount a response and calm itself back down and whatever it's trying to do without it lingering for days and days and days. Okay. And so inflammation, a lot of times for me, I think nutrient deficiencies, because I think by far we are all so prone to not being sufficient in our sources of nutrients, and so that fuels a lot of inflammation. In a similar vein, that's why earlier in this podcast we talked about doing an elimination diet and identifying foods that you are sensitive to, because if you're eating something on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, your body is never going to get the chance to simmer back down. So that's important. And then also just up-regulating inflammation in terms of things not leaving when they should. We really we want downtime, right? If there's not enough downtime in our lives, it's really hard to not be inflamed and go mode, or anything that feeds that sort of cycle. So that is progesterone excess for sure. And then another one that is kind of oddly specific are things like mercury fillings. If you have progesterone excess and you're kind of like, that's weird, I'm not sure where this is coming from. If you have mercury fillings, sometimes it's a good idea to get those addressed, because if they're breaking down and you have heavy metal toxicity, it can show up as a progesterone excess because you're not able to get rid of progesterone in the way that you should. Okay, so those are the more common things that we think of, although be aware that this tends to be a little bit more rare than the deficiency part. So let's go on to the deficiency. So progesterone deficiency can happen for a couple reasons. A lot of reasons actually. It can be anything from like a low fat cholesterol intake, so you don't have the building blocks to make progesterone, low body fat, chronic stress, over exercising, having gluten, dairy, other food sensitivities, and then more structural things like a lack of ovulation, so lack of ovulation would be something like PCOS or pituitary amenorrhea, or it could be that you don't have a uterus, which, a lot of people ask, why would not having a uterus matter? Because progesterone is made in the ovaries, and that is a dang good question that I don't think we fully understand, but certainly there are more signaling compounds than we are even aware of or can test, and so there is communication there that we don't fully have a handle on, but that certainly can play a role. And then things like hypothyroidism, recently having a kid, nursing, or taking birth control pills or other kind of man-made hormones. All right, so those are all the causes, and I always say the causes because everyone kind of wants to know. Many of us end up being progesterone deficient. So that combo of that ratio where you're progesterone deficient and estrogen dominant, or have estrogen excess, is super, super common. So I always try to have a more complete list of causes, because then at least you guys can have a lot of areas in which to investigate and kind of find out more about. But in terms of what to do about low progesterone, is many times this is the part that has to do with modern life stressors. Progesterone creation and elimination is impacted very, very strongly by our perception of the world and our safety within it. Okay, so if your brain is always perceiving scary, uncertain, unkind things, then progesterone is just not going to be created. It's basically a way for your body to down-regulate and downplay, although it has many ways of doing this, but this is a big way that it can not sustain a pregnancy or worry about making a baby in times of stress. So the number one thing that you can do for progesterone deficiency is create a life, or begin to tailor your life so that you can get adequate rest, downtime, you make time for yourself, you make time to do the things that feel good, you're consciously meditating and moving your life forward with your goals, you are journaling and excavating outdated beliefs and updating them. All of this work that we've had you do in the cycle has been on the basis of these very, 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 very common hormonal abnormalities. And that's what makes, when people say, well, I have estrogen dominance, just living in sync with my cycle, like, how is that going to help? Like, yeah, I'm doing all this stuff, but like, I'm not addressing the progesterone deficiency or whatever, estrogen excess. And my answer to that is always, by doing the syncing with your cycle and honoring the ebbs and flows and letting your body set that rhythm and honor it, you are actually impacting these signaling pathways much more than if you continue to live the way you lived, but you add in something like Brussels sprouts and broccoli sprouts and alfalfa sprouts. Like, I think that probably, even though we love thinking about supplements and foods and all of that, when you stop to think about that, it makes a lot of sense. Unless you change the underlying factors that lead to progesterone being low, it's really hard to actually increase it. And it's a little bit frustrating because the list of foods that boost progesterone is a lot more limited than estrogen, in my opinion, like the ones that actually can make a difference for you. Although I feel like everyone always talks about yams and things like that. But stress management, nutritional sufficiency, and allowing your body to rest, recuperate, and then work hard when it's ready to work hard, and everything else we've been talking about the cycle, that is the foundation of what will actually make the biggest difference for you. So if you're coming to this and you're listening and you're having spotting and all of that stuff that goes along with progesterone deficiency, vaginal dryness, UTIs, mood disturbances, anxiety, everything like that, I feel for you because I've totally been there. It's going to take a really detailed look at your life to see how you can impact it. I hear a lot of people say that they have the job they have and it's stressful and it takes up a lot of time and there's nothing they can do about that. So what then? And I totally can commiserate with that in a way because, being a resident, at the time of this recording at least, I was a resident. You're up all the time, you're at work all the time, situations are stressful, you feel like everyone's judging you while you're doing stuff, you're learning, you're making mistakes, you're just all the aspects of dealing with other humans and trying to take care of them. I don't have full control over my life. So my sleep schedule isn't the best. I'll just be perfectly honest right now. I don't always have time to eat during the day, and so I'll skip meals. I don't always get to sleep 8 hours a night, 9 hours a night. Sometimes I get 4, and that's all that's going to happen that night. It doesn't mean that you are then doomed to be stuck forever. There is actually a lot of power that you still retain, even though some aspects of your life may not be able to be shifted, okay? So the way that you think about your situations, the first thing you put on your mind consciously when you wake up in the morning, is it, oh, I gotta get up, I'm so tired, this sucks? Or is it, I'm so grateful to do what I do, I'm so grateful that I have the health to be able to do this, because you're still awake, so you still have that health. You're able to stand up if you can, so you stand up, or whatever. You can move your arm if that's what you can do. There's always something to be grateful about, even though you may not have control over all of your life. And that will make such a huge difference that when you get more time and you have more sleep and you have more consistent meals and all of those things, you will take off in your health a lot faster, having done the hard work of changing what you can change at that time. If I think one example of this that's really good to remember is those of you with young children. It's not always going to be like this, and there's a lot of what you can do now to set yourself up, even though you may say, like, I have a 3-month-old and they're going to get up 8 times at night and that's what's going to happen. That's okay too. That's life. And the whole point of getting health is to still live your life and still have that kid, have that great job, have the thing, whatever you want. So don't despair if that's you and you feel like you can't absolutely fix everything in your lifestyle. That's all right. That's okay. Do what you can, and you'll see that your life will shift in response to that. It's very, very cool. All right, ladies, we are actually just going to have our last podcast that's been in this format. So we're going to talk about estrogen deficiency and excess. And then we'll probably have one more class just as a wrap up, but that will be it for season 1. So yay, thank you so much for keeping up with this, for staying on and listening. Make sure you come hang out with us. We're mostly on Instagram for the most part. That's zesty_ginger, or shoot us an email. It's support@zestyginger.com. All right, ladies, I will see you later.
Hey, thanks for stopping by this Podclass. If you are ready to dig deeper into your health, really understand your cycle, stop guessing with random supplements, and start testing, our Healthy Hormones group starts September 27th. You can find more details at zestyginger.com/healthy hormones and find out if this is the place for you. And as always, we offer free 20-minute consultations, so jump on the phone with us and we'll help you decide if it's a good fit.